This is Critical Nonsense, our high-lowbrow show about culture, science, and tech. This week, Joey asks me about going analog.
Woo! Hey, Tucky Tucky. Hey, Tucky Tucky Joey. This is what a Joey sounds like. And this is what an executive producer and hot Cheeto Jess Vander sounds like.
Hi, this is Jess.
My daughter apparently is a big fan of both Selena Gomez and Cardi B. And when she makes connections that when she realizes a song that she likes is either of them, she's like, did you know Cardi B and Selena Gomez are on the song Taki Taki? And I was like, yes, I did. I told you. And she's like, I'm just reminding you.
Just so that you know, in case you were not thinking about it, you should now be thinking about this.
Yeah, I want you to remember.
Yeah.
She's like, can we watch the video again? And I'm like, this may be inappropriate for a 6-year-old, but, like, go off, I guess.
Find your inspiration wherever it may come from.
Yeah, we like play music while we're riding the bike in, and I saw like this couple walking with their baby this morning, maybe like 1.5, and there was like Amigos and Cardi B song came on, and I like looked over to see what traffic was coming. I saw them kind of look at each other like judging me. I was like, whatever, this song's a banger. You don't know.
Look, my daughter has great taste. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. Jess.
Joey.
Can we talk about luddites?
Yeah.
Well, not really, but maybe.
You know what I like the idea of ludite like crudite?
Can we talk about ludites?
Ludite?
I think luddites, maybe live corrections department, is like based on someone whose name was Lud. There was like an
Ludd.
And then it was like, yeah, followers of Lud are luddites, and that's where.
Wait, why is that corrections department? That's just like a new.
Well, I just didn't know. I wasn't 100% sure.
We can check it right now.
Yeah, the ludites.
I feel like it's a mean.
Ned Ludd.
I feel like luddite is like not a nice word.
Yeah, self-described followers of Ned Ludd, a legendary weaver whose name was used as a pseudonym in threatening letters to mill owners and government officials. So it was like a fake person named Ned Ludd, and then the Luddites came. The reason I bring this up is because I saw a talk last week, or like a panel discussion too, that were around concepts, like exploring concepts in AI to be able to just like understand, trying to orient towards a more positive integration of AI into society. And there was this woman, I believe her name is Oveta Sampson, and she was talking about when she started her career early on, she was a journalist, and she would like write out long form on like a legal pad her pieces, and then would share it, and an editor at the time or something was like, you can't keep doing this, like you're not gonna like operate at the pace that you need to, or it seemed to be the implication that she was saying the editor had. And I had been thinking about it for a while of like, what, like I do write a lot in longhand. There are certain things I obviously can't, but I'm always have a notebook with me. I'm taking notes or like writing down ideas or things like that. And I had then saw a new journal article yesterday that was, hold on, let me just pull it up to give credit to the authors. It is called, journal articles always the best titles, incredible titles.
Incredible hits.
Yeah. This new one is handwriting but not typewriting leads to widespread brain connectivity, a high density EEG study with implications for the classroom, from F.R. Rudd Vanderweel and Audrey L.H. Vandermeer from the Norwegian University of Sciences and Technology, Trondheim, Norway. Give the authors due credit. But the study was exploring what is the brain activity difference between handwriting things and typewriting things, and they found a pretty significant difference. Handwriting actually creates more cross neuronal pathway activation. More parts of your brain are active, and it would have significant implications for when you're learning. The authors aren't suggesting you should never be typewriting or things like that, but in particular, in that act of trying to learn something, to pull down different concepts, you're getting access to sort of more regions of your brain from handwriting. And I was just like, oh, so many people are like, handwriting is dumb. They're like, just take notes by typewriting, or like, I don't have time to do that, or handwriting is disappearing. And I thought, like, as I was thinking over the last week, I was like, oh, is this kind of like a Luddite perspective? Am I being silly about that? Like, where are the benefits of certain types of analog activities in a sort of increasingly digital world? And so my question for you is, what are the important analog activities in an increasingly digital world?
First of all, how have we not talked about this? Second of all, how amusing is it to me that you have used the word typewriting to describe typing, which I feel like these days we never talk about it like that, but it's a much clearer parallel to handwriting. I just think it's funny that when we think of typewriting, when I think of typewriting anyway, I think of like what I almost would describe it as an analog activity. Yeah. Tap, 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 tap. And it got me thinking about even like all of the in-betweens where some people prefer those like very ticky-tacky, clicky-clacky keyboards. I don't know maybe that's a follow-up study if there's any such thing as like an in-between, but it just got me wondering about if there would be some middle ground of slightly more connected task rather than like smoothie, like the idea of the swipe to text where you like skate your finger across the keyboard instead of tapping across the keyboard. Like, I wonder if that's actually like complicated in the sense that it's like the cursive of typewriting, where you're making actually a different shape than the letters you are intending to appear on a screen, versus the in your little Apple Watch or I assume other digital watches work this way too, where you can sort of like draw the letter to type. I don't know. It's just like, it's really interesting the number of like intermediate format of a thought I have, and how do we what is the intermediating technology that helps me put that down. It's really, gosh, I have a lot of questions. I feel like we have to know more about what handwriting is good for, I guess, so then we can figure out what are the other activities. What are the other analog activities?
Yeah, I think in this case, sort of what they're talking, there is this almost like post-humanist orientation to the introduction of technology, which is maybe like an orientation around efficiency as opposed to efficacy, right? Like typing is faster. You can produce more words per minute from typing. The thing that you sort of forget in that process is like we still have a body, we have a corpus, and it is designed, our brains are designed to control that, like that body for it to exist in space outside of a digital realm. And then, there I've seen things in the past. I can't like pull back exact articles, but the act of handwriting, I think can move closer to the pace of speech, which is more aligned with being able to like slow the act of writing down enough where there is like a more controlled pace, whereas you can type faster than you can speak if you know what you want to say, or if you're like taking dictation or things like that. And so even in that example, it is like actually like maybe you're operating closer to the way that your brain operates. It's also because you are physically drawing letters on a page in space, you're holding the pen or pencil or whatever writing implement, you're adjusting the amount of pressure and the swings left and right to draw that. You're looking at the margins and how the letters are spaced and anticipating those things. You're actually activating like your parietal cortex as an example, because of like a lot of spatial orientation and like math concepts and things like that exists in that portion of your brain. And so you're starting to make different because it's activating more parts of your brain. You're able to like actually access and make different connections than you would just by typing.
Okay, helpful. And I think this maybe gets at the thing that is tripping me up about the original question, which is that I don't know that it is because it doesn't seem like it's because typing is digital. It just appears that it is not it isn't an interface optimized for
correct
like quality, or like, and it's not because it is digital, it's just because that is the thing that has become commonplace. So yes. The analog solution of paper is probably the thing that's easier to do. I think, some people have tablets that, and like
the remarkable,
the
right?
pen. Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's cool to see other interfaces that experiment with these things. Like, you're right. Or like, what are those trade-offs that we're trying to optimize for? Like, typing is, it is faster. And if that's the goal, then great. You can keep up with, like, you're taking notes on something. If your objective is to transcribe, typing is faster. If your objective is to synthesize and process and internalize something that's being said rather than get all of those verbatims, the combination of AI transcriptions plus you and a piece of paper might actually be the right pair to get the job done. And it gets me wondering about like how many, like, maybe it's like a team effort to get the best thing, get the best output, like acknowledging some of these trade-offs and our technological limitations. Maybe you need to centaur strategy to to have the the optimal solution.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right in sort of challenging the like foundational premise of the question. Like, I wasn't thinking about it this way, but right, like a typewriter is analog and would still have failed at this exercise. I think what the pursuit, that question of like pursuit of efficiency maybe is actually the root, right? Like the typewriter was still in theory faster, reproducible, could be, previously like mimeographed and then more quickly reproduced than someone handwriting it like a 1,000 times or something. But the actual act of maybe all of this is about sort of finding more integrative ways to think and process that includes your body in the activity, right? Like, there are other things, and maybe we've spoken about this in the past, but I'd seen studies within sort of like educational journals in the past that, like, particularly among young boys, they actually can learn faster through what they talk about like kinetic learning, where like you're moving. So sometimes they had a study where they were having boys throw a ball back and forth. And I think it works for girls. It was just exaggerated for young boys, like prepubescent boys, where they're throwing a ball and learning math, and they performed better at integrating the math because they were moving while it was happening.
Okay, this is also like a really interesting thing in the context of like what are the other things that get in our way, if not just like the technologies and the goals and the objectives that they were designed for, but also maybe there are other great alternatives right under our noses that we reject for one reason or another. It reminds me, I think we've talked about it on the show before, of like the underhanded free throw in basketball.
Like Chuck Berry, is that who it was? The underhanded free throw shot,
which is
the diaper shot.
Statistically, as I understand it, unless this is a myth and someone correct me, but as I understand it, like it is much more reliable of a way to shoot and
Rick Barry
get your free throw. Gosh, I'm so bad at sports words, but you know what I mean. But people are like, it has been so stigmatized, and there are all these social inhibitors of like, but that's embarrassing. Like, that's, like that's an embarrassing way to throw a ball at someone decided, and therefore we don't do it, even though it is better. Or like the idea that like you might think better when you're moving, but you'd be a social pariah in a corporate boardroom if you're like pacing around, because we have all of these sort of perceptions of the way things are supposed to be in our social order. And so it's like there are plenty of things that maybe would be smarter ways to do, or, a better way to do something, and we still aren't doing it, even though we have a great solution.
Yeah, Rick Barry was shooting 51% from the free throw line and was like frustrated, and it was impacting the game, and started shooting underhand and was like ridiculed like dramatically for it. But when he retired, at the time he had the highest all-time free throw percentage at like just a hair under 90%. It was like where is it? It was like 89.3%. So while it was unorthodox and ridiculed, it was highly effective.
Yes, and so I think that actually gets back to the what I believe to be like the spirit of this question, and is like the shame behind being a luddite or like doing something analog. I think all of that's wrapped up in the idea of like doing a thing that maybe seems weird or worse, or for whatever the standardized reason is, it's like bad on that scale. But it takes vision to know, hey, I'm doing this for some other reason that maybe you haven't considered. Sorry that I am more expansive and comfortable making a fool of myself, even if you don't like it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it comes back to, so like within norms, there, like in sociology, they talk about sort of 4 types of norms, like folkways, taboos, mores, and laws. And sort of folkways tend to be like the unspoken rules. They tend not to be written down. They're like rules you learn. They tend to be like in groups, signifiers, and things like that. And I think business in particular, as like a sort of institution or quadrant of society, has a ton of those, like you said, right? Like sometimes in meetings, I just want to stand up because I feel like I'm going to think better, and like the person that I am, like, and having a little bit of excess energy, I need to burn a little bit off, but actually standing or moving helps. Or like having a whiteboard to maybe this question of drawing. Like sometimes when we're trying to figure a thing out, either like a whiteboard or a big piece of butcher paper, like nothing that's actually written down often is like the solution. But in the process of trying to work through, draw like different connections in and understand a concept is like really helpful. And those instances are they tend not write like Goldman Sachs. I saw a thing earlier this week that was like, it's funny, in finance, it is still an extreme taboo to have any visible tattoos, and you 100% will put like a glass ceiling on yourself. And someone made a comment that was like, tattoos. I brought someone in as like a referral that had a mustache, and I asked how the interview went, and they said it went really well, but if he's coming back for a second interview, he better come back clean shaven. Like, they, like in some of these pockets of the world, the folkways are so strong that like even doing a thing like I don't know that handwriting necessarily would enter this type of arena, but there is like an expectation, just type it, it's faster, do whatever. But like that question of whether it's better or more effective is like almost outside of the consideration set.
Totally. And especially for things that are inherently social, that's going to be the hardest place. I was by comparison thinking about like, oh, there's some things that maybe are weird, but get a ton of like, but everybody does it because they're more individual. So this is a totally different context and example, but cooking with your hands, like dressing a salad with your hands or like crushing tomatoes with your hands is often, it's sort of like the chef and cook celebrated way to do things, even though, maybe by other metrics, it's like, is that as sanitary or is, all these things. And it's like, yeah, but this is kind of the best way. And like, if you're anybody who's anybody, that that's kind of the way to do it, but it's so much more private and personal. Unless maybe you're in sort of a high octane kitchen where that's the way you're taught. But like it's a safer environment to optimize for what actually is getting your desired outcome rather than some other external one.
Well, it's really interesting in that context too, right? Like to the point I made earlier about like we're sort of extracting our bodies from the thinking and action process. There was that in like the second season of Chef's Table that was like a French season of it. One of the guys was talking about like, I learned how to be in the kitchen, like for my body to be in the kitchen from my grandmother. And I often don't think about the steps. I think about the movements of like, this is how you cut. And I've done that movement so many times that like the way he spoke about it was almost as if he was like storing recipes in his body, in his arm, in his hand, and in whatever. And like you said, like if you're crushing tomatoes with your hands, you will feeling it, you will know like, is this ripe, as opposed to only using your eyes or your nose. Like you're including additional like you're allowing for a larger sort of capacity to evaluate how is the food, what is going to be required. It doesn't quite, the texture doesn't feel right in this salad because the vegetables aren't here, so I'm going to add in something a little crunchy. You know what I mean? Like you're allowing more of your body to participate in the activity and like thinking. Yeah.
Yes, and it also is a reminder of like the biases that we have against all other senses but our eyes. Like and how much we underestimate the power of haptics, the power of smell. Like there's a whole thing in cooking of like, when it's done when it smells done, or like and like they're right, or like you were just describing this, like the choreography of memory, all of these things we sort of put on the back burner because, well, the eyes are the most godly of the senses.
Yeah, can I say one like silly thing to that point before we do a wrap-up corner? I got a carbon dioxide monitor for the office. I didn't talk to people about it because I didn't want to freak people out. I was just like, oh, maybe we should get some more plants in the conference rooms and things like that. And I was looking at it, and I would breathe, and I would pop open windows or things like that if it was getting a little high. And I basically train myself to have a new scent. Like I was able to detect if the carbon dioxide was high without having to look at it, just from like having the feedback and having like a sense of how that felt. And all of a sudden,
Right. Or like I'm thinking slower. I should go check and see if it's high. It does appear to be high. Cool. Okay, let me open a window. I learned the same thing from Ryan in our own house. He'd be like, I'm grumpy and I'm thinking slower and it's not that hot and I have been drinking water and maybe I should open a window.
Yeah. Yeah. I leave the windows open all the time at my house, like year round. But it was all of a sudden I was like, it feels like it might be 900. You know, like I was like,
crazy.
Oh, and now I have the sense
Not
of
like
the carbon.
Right. Not that you can perceive it by smell or other, but you can tell by the way the symptom, right? Like the way that your body is.
Yeah, my body was detecting it kind of diffusely. And yeah. So Jess, you want to bring us to our analog wrap-up corner? You want to write down the solution?
Well, as always, a Joey Kmar special of some journal article from Norway spawned a question that I think I appreciate that we were able to unravel a little bit, because it's not just about doing more things analog in our increasingly digital world. It's pushing our digital world to better respond and sort of collaborate with all of these things that are maybe different, but maybe better ways to achieve results. And some of those things might involve, using our bodies in ways that seem kind of archaic and simple, but sometimes that's actually a really thoughtful and better way to do things than technologies designed with efficiency in mind. And maybe you'll have to just get comfortable being like the Rick Barrys of the world, being a little different, standing up and walking around in the meeting, if ultimately it gets the job done. I don't know. I think this is a you do you kind of a situation.
I mean, maybe I'll just have to be like Golden State legend Rick Barry. Simple as that. Oh, sorry. San Francisco Warriors at the time.
Wow. Get it together.
Oakland Oaks, Washington Caps.
Corrections department.
He must have been ABA. Yeah, he was ABA. Wow. He existed before. He was unafraid in the 1960s, no less, to throw an underhanded basketball. Legend. Critical Nonsense is a Sylvain production.
Brought to you by Whoop, there it is.
As always, we'd like to thank our executive producer and granny shot thrower, Jess Vander.
Thanks so much. We'd also like to thank sound engineer and the hot 2-hour Cheeto, Alex Contel.
We'd like to thank our programming coordinator and man who may appreciate Rick Barry because he played it for 2 years on the Houston Rockets, Les Jacobs.
Thanks also to our production crew, and they know how to dress a salad. Sarah Gilbert, Nora Mestrich, Christy Jensen, Amanda Medina, and Amy Waters.
And as always, thanks, Ellen. Special thanks to a well-crafted salad.
Honestly, wow. It is an art form. It is really yucky if done poorly, and really next level when done right.
Special thanks to Alana Bondell, who is killing it both on her salad game, which at some point maybe we should have her on to talk about that, but we should also have her on to talk about her version of Prognogs that was pop culture oriented, where she is just on a heater. She made like 8 or 9 predictions.
Streak. Nailed it.
And she's already at like 6 of
pretty good
8 or 9. And Jess also, she's getting, this may be the year. You might really like have prognogged it up at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, lock down the nogs. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see how it goes, but we always must, we must remain humble, but we also must remain optimistic that all of our nogs become true. Or maybe don't,
also,
in the case that it's bad.
Also in like the wave of the moment that you're in every year when we do the prognogs, it's like some years it's like I hope we're all wrong, you know?
Yeah, I really
Like,
don't want some of them. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like I think this year hopefully I'm super wrong. Let's find out.
Let's find out.
Well, Jess, love you, mean it. Bye.
Okay, cool. Bye.